Hello, everyone, and welcome. For any of you who have been studying Mandarin, you know that feeling, right? You finally get your numbers down, 1 through 100, maybe even 1,000. You're feeling confident. But the moment you step into a real market in China, you realize that was only half the battle. So today, we're going way beyond just counting. We're going to decode the actual language of money. And trust me, this isn't just a vocabulary list. It's a crucial lesson in culture, communication, and really the confidence you need to navigate daily life. So let's start with a very practical scenario, one that trips up a lot of learners. You see a price tag, 10.50. Simple enough. You can read the numbers. But how do you actually say that price to a shopkeeper? In a way that sounds natural. This single question gets to the very core of our lecture today, this split between the formal, written language of money and the informal, spoken language you hear in every single transaction. And understanding this difference, well, it's fundamental. Okay, so here is our roadmap for today. First, we're going to establish the whole idea of this formal-informal split. Then, we'll dive deep into the formal, written units of the renminbi. After that, we'll contrast those with their everyday, spoken counterparts. And this next part is really important. We're going to spend a good amount of time on the cultural side of a transaction, and then we'll wrap it all up with some serious pronunciation practice to make sure you can actually use this knowledge correctly. First things first, we have to understand that in a Chinese context, money basically has its own linguistic system. I mean, the words you would use to write a check are completely different from the words you'd use to buy some vegetables at a market. So you see, true fluency isn't just about knowing the numbers. It's about what we call sociolinguistic competence, knowing which words to use in which specific social situation. This slide right here really captures the core idea. In linguistics, we talk about the difference between 书面语, that's the formal written language, and 口语, the colloquial spoken language. You could kind of compare it to dollars versus bucks in English, but honestly, in Mandarin, this split is much more than just slang. It's a consistent, almost universal rule in everyday conversation. All right, let's build our foundation. The official currency of China is the renminbi, which literally translates to the people's currency. Its formal written units are what you're going to see on banknotes, in financial documents, and on any kind of official price list. The main formal unit is the yuan. Now, it's really crucial to get this distinction straight. Renminbi is the name of the whole currency system, kind of like sterling for the UK, while yuan is the base unit of that currency, like the pound. So every banknote you see is officially denominated in yuan, which signifies its formal legal value. And this is where the language gets so cool. If you look at the character's origin, the character gong has this built-in meaning of first or primary or origin. This makes total sense, right? It gives us a clear reason why it was chosen as the primary unit of the nation's currency. Connecting the character to its original meaning like this is a really powerful way to help you remember its role. Okay, the next formal unit down is jiao. This is equal to 1/10 of a yuan. So think of it as the formal word for a dime. Now, you will see this character written on menus or receipts. But, and this is a big but, it's almost never used when you're speaking. Seriously, hearing someone say jiao in a market would be as weird as hearing an American ask for 1 dime's worth of something. It just doesn't happen. And finally, the smallest formal unit is the fen, which is 1/100th of a yuan. Now, because of inflation, you're not going to find any fen coins rattling around in your pocket anymore. They're pretty much obsolete in physical form. But the unit is still very much alive in digital finance. Supermarket prices, online payments, they often price things right down to the fen. So you definitely still need to be able to recognize it. Okay, so we've established the formal building blocks, yuan, tiao, and fen. Now we get to shift from the theoretical to the practical. We're going to look at the colloquial terms that you will actually hear and use in pretty much all of your daily interactions. This is where we move from the textbook right out onto the street. I need you to pay close attention to this slide because this right here is the absolute heart of our lecture. On the left, you've got the 书面语, the formal terms we just covered, and on the right, the 口语, the spoken words you need to know. As you can see, yuan gets replaced by kuai, and jiao gets replaced by mao. Let's break down each of these. All right, the word you will use almost exclusively for the main unit is kuai. The history of this word is pretty interesting. It literally means piece or lump, which is a throwback to when people used actual chunks of silver as currency. So, while a price tag might read 10 yuan, you're going to say 10 kuai. If you say yuan in that context, you'll sound like you just read it out of a textbook. And for the 10-cent unit, the spoken term you need is mao. Its literal meaning is feather, and the connection to money is thought to come from the fine, feather-like details on old coins that signified a small value. This is the absolute standard. So for a price of 5.50 yuan, you would actually say it as wu kuai, wu mao. Now, let's move beyond just the words and into how language is actually used in its social context. For any of you who plan to live or work in a Chinese-speaking environment, understanding the cultural choreography of a simple transaction is just as important as the vocabulary. Your body language is a huge part of the exchange.
So let's just walk through the steps of a polite transaction. Acknowledging the vendor, stating your order, that's pretty universal, but the critical cultural piece here is step 3, using 2 hands. In many East Asian cultures, the act of giving or receiving anything, a business card, a gift, and yes, money, with 2 hands is a profound gesture of respect. It physically shows that the person has your full attention and sincerity. Just casually handing something over with 1 hand can come across as disrespectful. This isn't just about good manners, it's a deep cultural value about mutual respect, even in the smallest interactions. And of course, every transaction should end with a sincere "谢谢."
All right, now for the really fun part. Let's move from theory to practice. It's one thing to see these words on a screen, but it's a whole other thing to actually say them correctly. So let's work on the pronunciation together. Let's practice a super common price, 5.50. Colloquially, this is 5块5. You'll notice the final mall is often just dropped in speech when it's clear, kind of like saying 5.50 in English. Okay, now let's practice it. First, just listen to me say it at a natural speed. 5块5. Now, I'll break it down. Repeat after me. 5块5. One more time. 5块5. Let's look at the most common tonal mistakes that native English speakers make with this phrase. For 5, the third tone has to complete its full dip. I want you to imagine your voice physically dropping low and then coming back up. It's not flat, it's a valley. 5. For 块, the fourth tone needs to be sharp and decisive. Think of it like a command, not a question. It starts high and falls fast, like a karate chop, 块. The difference between a lazy tone and a correct one is huge. Okay, our second example is 10 cents, or 1 dime. Now, if you were to just pronounce the characters as you learned them, you'd say "i" and "mao." So logically, you might put them together and say "i mao." But I want you to listen very closely to how a native speaker says it. "I mao." Let me say that again. Incorrect. "I mao." Correct. "I mao." You hear that change? That's not random. It's a fundamental rule. So what's going on here? This is a perfect illustration of a crucial role we call tone sandhi, specifically the tone changes for the character "i." You can think of it like a chameleon. Its tone changes based on what comes after it. When "i" is followed by a first, second, or third tone character, it changes to a falling fourth tone. And since "mao" is a rising second tone, the first tone of "i" has to become a fourth tone, "i." This is not optional. It is a mandatory rule, and mastering it will take you a giant leap closer to a natural, authentic accent. So as we wrap up, if there's one thing you remember from today, let it be this. The formal character yuan on a price tag is your guide. It tells you the official value, but the colloquial word kuai, that's your tool. That's what you're going to use to communicate effectively in the real world. See one, say the other. And I'll leave you with a final question for you to think about. This whole phenomenon of a formal and informal split goes way beyond money. It's all over the language. Think about, for example, how you say the number 2, or how you talk about the days of the week. Where else might you find the split at play? Looking into this question will unlock a much, much deeper understanding of both the language and the culture it comes from. Thank you for your attention today.